Yo, think about it, man. It's always the little things that can mess up a big event. Like in 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up because of a stupid cheapo ring that probably cost less than a Happy Meal. 7 lives and millions of dollars down the drain, all because of that tiny thing. And don't even get me started on blood clots, bruh. Something so tiny you need a dang microscope to see it can straight up kill someone by blocking blood flow to their brain. It's crazy how something as small as a patch of ice can cause so much trouble. Driving on the road can make your car spin out and crash if the wheel spins and you lose control, especially on a sharp turn. This could end in death, and the risks keep adding up. Sometimes it's the little things that can mess up a big plan. But when you think about it, can we really call marriage a big deal? I believe so. I see my marriage as a big deal. I've been married to a lovely woman named April for a little over 8 years now. We have 2 amazing boys, Chris and Charles. Chris is named after me, and Charles is named after my. Hey Dad, we live in a pretty nice house with plenty of room for a growing family. I didn't finish college, but I have a solid job as a mechanic. My talents and skills have helped us live a good life. I work long hours, but the money is worth it. I've always thought my marriage was the best part of my life. I worked hard to provide for my family and took it seriously. The things that ruined my marriage were small things in my case. It was a tiny blood vessel in my brain that caused problems. So, I was near another boat and then the vessel bumped into the other one, causing me to get a killer migraine. It happened on that unlucky day, and the symptoms were the usual: lights were unbearable, sounds were getting louder, and smells were awful. It came out of nowhere, just a sudden, intense pain that caught me off guard. I knew right away what it was, but the issue was I didn't have my Imitrex inhaler with me to help ease the pain. The pills I had on me just weren't cutting it. I was using my inhaler to try and ease the pain, but it was taking a while to make it bearable. I couldn't work while in so much pain. I stumbled into my boss's office and broke the news to him. He freaked out, called his secretary Penny, and ordered her to take me home immediately and not let me drive for safety. Penny assisted me to stand up, and together with my boss, they escorted me out of the office and towards the exit. Once outside, Penny helped me lean against the wall while she went to get her car. I was in too much pain to do anything. I couldn't stand the damn light, so I just closed my eyes and pressed my hands to my temples as hard as I could to try and dull the pain. Once I got in the car, I leaned back in the seat and tried to block out everything. The pain was getting worse and I could barely see, so I had to keep my eyes shut tight. The sounds were like a loud buzz in my head and the smell was making me feel nauseous, making my stomach churn. Since Penny knew where I lived, I didn't have to say or do anything while she drove. It felt like we were driving forever, but eventually we arrived. I was driving when suddenly she made me stop the car, got out, opened my door, and yanked me out. I just followed her lead because that's all I could do. Penny took me inside and guided me to the kitchen. I told her to grab her inhaler from the fridge. She found it, handed it to me, and held it while I used it. I took a deep breath of the aerosol, letting it go into my lungs and quickly into my bloodstream. Then I asked her to take me to the living room and help me lay down on the couch. I told her to shut off all the damn lights and turn off the blonde L, and she did. I waited a few minutes until I felt some relief kicking in, then she left. I thanked her for giving me a ride home and enjoyed the peace and quiet once she was gone. I must have passed out pretty fast once the pain started to go away, because I woke up later to voices. The room was pitch black, so I knew it was getting late. When I remembered where I was, I realized the pain was gone. I felt like I had been run over, but at least the pain was gone. Just had a bit of a migraine. I sat up real slow, waiting a sec to make sure the pain wasn't gonna come back. It disappeared, thank goodness. I was sitting in the dark, listening to my wife April and her friend Robin from next door. I don't think they knew I was there since it was dark and the lights were still off. Maybe April thought I was sleeping in, thinking I came home early. But nah, my car wasn't in the driveway. She probably didn't even know I was here. Maybe I'll just. I was about to sneak up to the door and surprise them both when I overheard their conversation. Come on, April, spill the details. How was it? Was it as good as last time? April replied, it was fantastic. I felt like I was in heaven. This time was even better than before, I swear to God. It was almost mind-blowing. It was the best sex I've ever had, even better than with Chris or your husband. Hell yes, I love Chris to death, but he never made me feel that way. Of course, I never allowed him to do those things to me. I would look like a total idiot if I did that, but then Carl must think you're a fool, of course. But I'm his friend and I enjoy it. God, I can't wait for next time. Aren't you worried that Chris will find out? What would he do? Have you thought about this? You're taking a big risk, you know. Chris will never find out, and even if he did, so what? He wouldn't do anything about it. He's nice and he would forgive me. He would never divorce me and risk losing his children. He loves those kids and knows that I will take care of them. I would ditch him in a second with a tough lawyer, he'd be gone. That's not like you, Ale. I've never heard you talk about Chris like that. How can you say you love him when you're saying stuff like that? It's freaking me out, girl. I think you're making a big mistake. I really want to warn you. I love Chris, I really do, but I don't want to end things with Carl either. I want both. I want the physical stuff with Carl and the emotional stuff with Chris. I need both and I'm not giving either up. I've heard. Man, my headache finally went away, but the heartache I was feeling was way worse. It was so intense that my stomach was in knots and I couldn't catch my breath. My ears were ringing and my head was pounding with each beat of my heart. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack, so I gripped onto the door frame until I started feeling a bit more normal. I still didn't let anyone know I was there, but as I regained control, the anger inside me grew until I felt like I was gonna blow up. I stood up straight, lifted my head, and as I walked into the kitchen, there was a sudden silence. Robin was the first to see me and her eyes widened, mouth dropped open in shock. She quickly covered her mouth and let out a quiet, "Oh my God." April turned to see what had caught Robin's attention and her expression went from satisfied to surprised to scared to angry, all in an instant. She pushed her chair back, stood up, and turned to confront me. "How much did you hear? Why the hell were you hiding and spying on us?" Me, I just stared at her silently. Then my eyes shifted to Robin, who quickly got up and said, "I gotta go, Pete. I'll look after the boys if you don't come get them. I'll call you later." With that, she practically sprinted out the side door. I watched her leave without saying anything. Once she was gone, I turned back to April, thinking about how she was the woman I had loved with all my heart for the past 8 years. 8 years that were the best of my life. I had always thought we would be together forever. Man, our lives were supposed to be forever, but now that dream's crushed. There ain't gonna be no happily ever after for us. We ain't gonna grow old together. April totally ruined it tonight. Where the hell were the guys? And where were you off to while you were getting busy with your side piece? Did you even think about them, or were you too caught up having fun with some other dude? Now I'm just chillin', trying to keep it together, but that pain is still there, cutting deep. It's gonna take a while for this hurt to go away. April looked pissed, man. It made her beauty turn into something ugly. Maybe that ugliness was always there. Man, April was something else. Maybe she was always there, lurking in the shadows. She took the boys out with Carly and Robin while I went shopping. Pete watched over them, and I was only with Robin. When I mentioned this, it felt like a small victory. The anger on her face turned into satisfaction. She finally figured out I had been home all along. She demanded to know why I was home, where my car was, and why I was sitting in the dark. She even accused me of spying on her. Someone tried to bust me, but I came home early with a killer headache. George asked Penny to give me a ride home because I couldn't handle the light. I took my migraine medicine and crashed out. I've been home ever since. Suddenly, I felt nauseous and had to puke. I got up and made a dash for the bathroom. Your voices woke me up, and what I heard made me sick. I had to bolt to the bathroom and try to empty my stomach through my mouth, but it didn't work. Man, that was rough. I was feeling successful, but my body was definitely not on board. I ended up sitting on the bathroom floor, my face against the cold toilet bowl, trying to relax as my stomach settled down and my breathing went back to normal. The sweat dried on my face, and the urge to puke faded away. After a few minutes, I got up, splashed some water on my face, and rinsed out my mouth. Once the shaking stopped and I felt a bit more in control, I headed back to the kitchen where April was just sitting there, staring out the window. "I'm gonna go get the boys," I told her. "I'm gonna tuck them in tonight." I walked past her and out the door, heading over to the Andersons. Pete and Robin Anderson were our neighbors and closest buddies. We spent many nights at each other's places, chatting and having some drinks. Yeah, best friends, damn it, I thought bitterly. I wondered what Pete knew. I should have just asked. I went up the steps to their back door, knocked a few times, and went in. Robin was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, talking to her husband. I think she was telling him something. He looked up as I entered. When Robin came in, he looked all pitying and scared. "I was there to pick up the boys, are they ready to go home?" I walked past Pete and into the living room where I figured the boys were hanging out with Carly, their teenage daughter. They were all working on a puzzle together while Carly watched. She smiled at me when I walked in and said, "Hi Mr. Phillips, are you here for them?" I nodded and she said she'll grab their jackets. I just stood there watching them, feeling sad. Moments like this were so precious. Man, finding out about the cheating was like a punch in the gut. All those happy moments in the family now tainted by selfish adults. It feels like everything is ruined beyond fixing. Thanks, Carly. I'll be in the kitchen when it's time. I went back to the kitchen where Petey and Robin were chillin'. I gave Robin a look, then turned to Petey. "Did you guys both know about her cheating on me?" "Petey, did you know when we were together? Was it some kind of secret encouragement? Did it give you a painful thrill?" I was mad and I said some harsh words, but I just wanted to know. I wanted to know what my close friends knew. I should have known. Pete looked at Robin with anger on his face before answering me. He said he didn't know anything, but he promised he would have told me if he did. I can't believe my wife knew and kept it from me, it's really messed up. You don't deserve this. I won't apologize to my wife, but I'm here for you if you need me. Pete. He gave his wife a dirty look, all pissed off. I trusted him, thought he would have spilled the beans if he knew. So that's what Robin and April were keeping from me. Guess I owe you a big thank you, Robin. Thanks for making me look like a fool, a chump, someone who didn't even know his wife was messing around with some other dude. Hope it makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside knowing what she was up to when she spilled the beans to you. I turned around when I caught a glimpse of Carly out of the corner of my eye. Slapped a fake smile on my face as the guys walked in. Each of them walked out with a cookie in hand. I was hoping she didn't hear my last comments, but judging by her face, that wasn't the case. This would be the last time Robin would hang out with my boys. I'm gonna make it my mission. I didn't know how, but I'll give it a shot. We went in through the back door of the house, and the boys bolted upstairs to change for dinner. I strolled through the empty kitchen to the living room, where April was chilling with the lights on. Man, I was feeling hella dark and down as I listened to the end of my life story. I got up, turned on the light by the couch, and opened the curtains to let in some fading daylight. The room was just filled with shadows, like dark corners symbolizing all the secrets my wife was hiding. April looked a mess. Her eyes were red and still shiny from crying, her face was pale and drawn, and she was all hunched over. All the anger and attitude she usually had was gone, and now she just looked scared. But honestly, it was a little too late for that. Instead of giving me hope, I felt grossed out. Was she feeling sorry now? No, now she's scared. I couldn't handle such a big change in just 10 minutes. No, this was just the beginning of the fight for control. She was a cheating wife who kept secrets and hid her affair from me. Her face showed deceit and trickery, not remorse. I stared at her and blurted out the first thing that came to mind, who is he? What does he have that I don't? She just looked back at me without saying a word, until I realized she wasn't going to say anything. I was just about to leave when she finally opened her mouth. Who he is doesn't matter, and it has nothing to do with you, Chris. I'm really sorry you had to find out this way. I never wanted you to find out, I never meant to hurt you like this. I'm sorry you overheard what I said to Robin. You have to understand, you have to. It's funny, there was no, I'm sorry I did that, it wasn't, I wish this never happened, it wasn't, this will never happen again. Just sorry I got caught and you had to figure it out. I shook my head, feeling defeated. I was sitting in the comfy chair she got me for our 5th anniversary. I used to love it, but now it's just a chair. Please, you have to let me explain. This doesn't have to be the end for us. We can carry on in the same way as before, if you just try to understand. You can do it. She looked at me with a pleading look that I've seen before when she wanted something I didn't agree with. Can you just tell me it's over? Can you promise me that you'll never see him or be with him again? You can do it. I kept my cool, but my body was all wound up, my hands squeezing the arms of my chair tight to keep myself in check. April stared at me, tears running down her face, but she didn't say anything. That was all I needed to know. She wasn't going to back down. I overheard her telling Robin she wanted to have her cake and eat it too, and she wasn't going to let me get in her way. She wasn't going to give up on him, and she wanted me to go along with it. I guess that's my cue. I'll put the kids to bed after dinner, and then we can talk about our options tomorrow. I'm gonna grab my stuff and crash at my brother's place. I got up and left the room to head to the kitchen. It's funny how the kitchen becomes the go-to spot when things are going to hell. I wonder why weird thoughts pop into your head when everything's falling apart. It's even weirder when you realize that your whole world is crumbling. April started making dinner for us, so I took the boys to the playroom and hung out with them for a bit. We were just having a blast playing games. When April invited us over for dinner in the middle of their game, we made a lot of noise as we headed over. I corralled the boys towards the bathroom to get them to wash their hands, just the usual stuff to keep them in line. Dinner that night was chaotic, with the boys being their usual rowdy selves, having a great time with each other, the food on their plates, and just life in general. Meanwhile, their parents sat quietly in their own little worlds, deep in thought about the choices and consequences they had to face. Ah, the bittersweet joy of growing up and leaving childhood behind. Why do kids always want to grow up so fast? They don't know squat, they just see all the freedom adults have and think it's endless. They don't realize all the decisions and consequences that come with it. They see adults doing whatever they want and think there's no rules to follow. Some adults know better, but some are clueless. They think freedom means doing whatever they want with no consequences or rules to follow. Like April, she cleaned up after dinner and did the dishes. I was in the kitchen while I took the boys upstairs to bed. We chatted and read a couple of stories for an hour until they finally stopped bickering and let me tuck them in. I walked to the door of their room, turned down the lights, and watched as they pulled the covers up to their necks, getting ready to drift off to dreamland where anything was possible and new adventures awaited. My eyes were burning and my throat felt tight with sadness as I realized that this precious moment had to come to an end. I went back downstairs, sat in a chair, and tried to hold on to something to anchor myself. It felt like my world was crumbling. Things were falling apart and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I loved April so much, but I couldn't shake off the words I heard while standing there in the dark, listening. Those words, he never made me feel this way, and I'm his, blank, there was no going back from that. I felt the love inside me die as I tried to think about all the possibilities. April walked in and sat down, saying, "We need to talk. I know you're upset, but you have to understand that what I have with Carl is just sex and excitement. Yo, I know this new thing will blow over soon, but I can't help but keep thinking about him. It's like a thrill for me and I don't want to let it go. But don't get it twisted, my feelings for you haven't changed. I love you, not him. He's just a temporary distraction, nothing more. This will all be over soon and we can get back to how things were. You just gotta let it happen." She was talking a mile a minute, but I couldn't make sense of what she was saying. I can't resist this urge to keep seeing him. Should I just go with it? Is she out of her mind or just confused? Listen, it had to end. You're the only one who doesn't get it. There is no us, no we, just you and him. It's done between us, it's over, no negotiating. I will never accept it. After 8 years of marriage, you should know me well enough to know I won't stand for your affair. But Chris, I love you. You're the only man I've ever loved. I can't stand Carl, please try to understand. Give me some space, please, baby. For the sake of our marriage and our family, just give me some space. Take all the time you need. Tomorrow, I'll get in touch with the lawyer and we'll divide everything up fair and square. I don't want to hurt you like you hurt me. I just want this to be over. I was feeling emotionally drained and just wanted to go to bed and forget about everything for a little while. My headache was gone, but the pain in my heart was real. I just wanted to forget for a few hours, but then you hit me with a curveball. No way, we're not getting a divorce. I'll fight you every step of the way. I'm gonna play dirty and make sure you don't get to see the boys much. If you don't give me what I want, you'll pay big time and I'll still have Carl. You can't stop me. I realized this marriage was over a long time ago after hearing that speech. The anger and disrespect weren't sudden, they were calculated. She never cared about hurting me, or else she wouldn't. If she had just done it right away, she could have stopped this before it even began. But no, she just had to wait for me to find out. Instead of cutting things off, she chose to hurt me as much as she could. There was no love here, just greed and a desire to embarrass me. I could feel my anger building up as I watched her. She could see it on my face, she knew she had pushed me too far. Her smug expression turned to fear when I finally spoke up. I just had one thing to say to her: April, when you back a rat into a corner, it bites. She's gonna go all out if you try to stop her from escaping. You should have realized that before you pushed me. But now you did it, and you're gonna regret it. Please, Chris, I don't want to do this, but I have no other option. I love you and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you don't leave us. If you don't get it and accept it, I'll fight you. You'll have no choice but to give in and stay with me. I know you love me and the boys too much to leave. I know you, Chris, you're gonna stay. Goodbye, April. Let the guys know I'll catch up with them whenever I can. I'm just gonna grab some stuff and go. I'll come back for the rest of my things later when we can figure out a time. I went upstairs and threw together a bag with essentials that would last me a day or two, just my bathroom stuff, a couple pairs of undies, jeans, and socks. Not much left after 8 years of marriage, just bitter memories. But I have 2 amazing sons and that's all that matters to me right now. I headed downstairs and saw April chilling in the kitchen by the door. So, it seems like she's gonna give it another shot. Chris, please don't do this, I'm begging you. You don't have to tell me that you're gonna dump him and never see him again. Just tell me this and maybe we can work things out. I can't do it, I just can't. Please. I shoved her away. I wanted to hit her as hard as I could, but I knew I had to control my anger. I'll come over in the evenings after work so the kids won't catch on right away. I opened the door and left. The door slammed shut behind me as I chucked my bag in the back seat and hopped into my truck. I backed out of the garage and hit the road. Along the way, I pulled out my cell phone and rang up Clyde, my brother. He lived about 10 miles from me. His wife had ditched him for her boyfriend 2 years back, and Clyde had no clue where she was. He didn't give a damn anymore, but he was too lazy to do anything about it. They never got divorced, but Clyde didn't let that hold him back. Now, he's a real boozer, always drinking with his buddies. Last night, me and him had a chat about it but didn't really come to a conclusion. I gotta say, he hardly ever gets wasted, he's usually just high most of the time. I reckon he's trying to suppress some memories, but that's just my 2 cents. He listened to me and invited me over to his place, saying he'd be back later. So, I drove over, grabbed the spare key from under the flower pot on the porch, and let myself in. As always, everything was spotless. Clyde is far from messy, in fact, he's borderline obsessive about keeping things tidy. It was nice to see, it felt familiar. The way things were, it was all good. It was just my life that got messed up. I went to the fridge, grabbed a few beers, and made myself cozy like he said. By the time he came back, I was feeling pretty buzzed. I went to the store for more beer and kept on drinking. When he came back, I just told Clyde that April and I had a spat. He sat down, cracked open a beer, and tried to keep me from going overboard. He said I was his bro and he'd always have my back. The next morning, I woke up with a killer hangover. Man, I had such a terrible hangover. It was totally my fault for drinking so much, even though I had a reason. But that's no excuse. I stumbled into the bathroom and stood in the shower, letting the cold water wash away the last bit of alcohol in my system. There's no point in staying drunk. I tried to find Clyde, but all I found was a note saying he was at work and would probably rat me out. Not surprising, considering we had to work that Saturday. Clyde and I both worked at the same place, renting out heavy construction equipment to big contractors and customers. We traveled all around the state to fix up equipment, and we were considered two of the top mechanics. Our job was to make sure the rigs kept running smoothly, no matter what issues came up. It was good money and long hours, but it provided for my family like I expected. I had to work hard because it was my responsibility to provide. I knew I had to keep making money to maintain that big house she was so proud of. I believed she saw it the same way I did, a home for us and safety for our family. I was proud of it, my way of providing and showing my love for my family. Last night she didn't tell me the whole truth. April had a different perspective on things. She said it was about her safety, but I think she also saw it as a way to have leverage over me in case of a divorce. She wanted the house and the money I earned, but only to buy fancy clothes for her lover and lingerie from Victoria's Secret. I turned up the water in the shower to try to block out these thoughts, even though I was running late. I needed to get out of there and go to work where I could clear my head, make plans, and make decisions that I couldn't make in that moment. April already had it all figured out. She knew I'd be shocked by her betrayal, so she planned this whole thing in advance. She had a strategy to take everything from me in the divorce, especially to hurt the kids. She made it look like it was my fault for not being okay with her messing around with some other guy. She set it all up perfectly to make me look like the bad guy. She rubbed it in my face and forced me to just deal with it. Let her hook up with some other dude, she thought she was slick. She had something good and wasn't gonna let her insecure husband mess it up. I got dressed, grabbed a bunch of big trash bags. I knew she'd be gone in the morning, taking the kids to her mom's. I pulled up to the house, went in, cleared out my closet and drawers, chucked it all in the bags. Grabbed all my bathroom stuff, stuffed it in a little bag, and loaded everything into my truck. Threw it all in the back. Sat down and went back inside the house. I wasn't planning on leaving just yet. I'll head home after work and chill with the kids for a bit. Got a lot on my mind and a lot to figure out. One thing's for sure though, my marriage is done. April will never be my wife, lover, or confidant again. She's with someone else now, not me. Couldn't help but let the tears flow when I thought about it. Sat on the floor of our old bedroom and just cried. Losing someone is tough. Man, I was totally in the zone at work today. I didn't even take a break for lunch, just kept grinding away. I was so focused on fixing stuff like fuel injectors, timing chains, and fuel pumps that I didn't even think about going home to my wife and kids. I tackled all sorts of tough challenges, like broken drive trains and hydraulic lifters, without a single complaint. I was working like a maniac, and didn't even realize it had been 10 hours until Clyde finally told me to take a break. He was like, "Dude, come on. Give it a rest. You're making the rest of us look lazy." Man, those jerks just stood there, waiting for me to stop, looking stunned. Sorry, little bro, I was just burying myself in work, trying to forget. I must have looked like I was about to cry when Clyde grabbed my arm and led me away to the seating area. Clyde and I have been tight since our parents died in a car crash 10 years ago. He was my best man at my wedding 8 years ago and the godfather of my boys, Chris Jr. and Charlie. I sat down and just stared at the situation. So, me and Clyde were sitting at the table when he brought us some hot coffee. The coffee was hot but tasted like crap. Anyway, he told me to spill the tea and not leave anything out. So, I started talking and couldn't stop for like 10 minutes. I spilled all the details to Clyde, the shame, humiliation, and contempt that April showed me. I even told him about the threats she made, trying to keep me from ruining her little sex party. She basically tried to make it impossible for me to do anything about it without giving up. She did everything on her own accord and now she expects me to just deal with it. I filled Clyde in on the expression on her face when she embarrassed me by talking to Robin about our intimate moments and how amazing they were. The disdain on her face when she warned me that she could take everything away from me. She made it obvious that her lover meant more to her than anything else. Clyde was taken aback. He always saw April as a decent woman and a good mom. His brother never mentioned any issues between them, so he just assumed their relationship was solid. Their marriage was solid, but now this happened. Clyde glanced at his brother and could see the hurt and agony he was going through. It was heartbreaking just to witness it. Chris was a good guy, a dependable dad, a great breadwinner, and throughout it all, someone the guys in the garage could always count on to have their backs. Over the years, he has gone above and beyond to help others. Clyde started to feel furious. How could she betray him like this? What the hell is her problem? His anger grew as he looked at his shattered brother and best friend. Hey, Chris, listen up. You can't just sit back and take this. You gotta do something about it. Let me and the guys lend a hand. It's just too much to handle. He had this worried look on his face, genuine concern written all over it. I could feel it. I looked up, feeling completely hopeless. What am I supposed to do? She's gonna take everything if I divorce her. Child support, her house, her car, everything. You know I would never take anything away from my kids. She's using them as weapons against me, and she knows I won't fight back. Damn, she really screwed them over. Now that idiot she's fooling around with is gonna be their new dad. He's a total jerk for sleeping with someone else's wife. I feel so helpless. Clyde just shook his head and muttered, screw them both. I used to love April like family, but she made her own bed and now she's gotta lie in it. We gotta go after both of them. First things first, we gotta figure out who he is. That part should be easy. Let me make a few calls and then we can talk. I just shrugged and said, okay, but I don't know what to do. I think I can do it. She doesn't tell me anything about him, so we'll just have to find him and confront him like we would with anyone else. And you know, you can never get April back, right? What she did makes it impossible. She will never respect you again if you agree with what she did. No way, dude. Now she's just another man's toy. I was surprised for a second, but then a slight smile appeared on my face. You're right, she's no longer my loving wife. Last night, I learned how quickly love can turn to hate, and my hatred for her today is stronger than ever. Man, last night she really stole my heart and turned it into something that would make her fall for me. I opened up to her about it and we had a good chat. After work, we decided to hit up a nearby bar, just for a chill time. We weren't planning on getting wasted or anything, we had some serious business to take care of. Clyde called a few more friends to join us and we all sat down to make a plan. I was blown away by the support my friends showed me, they didn't even hesitate to offer their help. We all brainstormed and came up with a solid plan together. It was awesome. Yo, so at 7 that night I pulled up to my crib and went inside. It was weird, man, 'cause as soon as I walked in, I realized this place wasn't really my home anymore. It was just a house. I took off my jacket in the kitchen and headed to the living room, where I saw April chilling in her chair, watching our 5-year-old twins, Chris and Charlie, playing video games. I just stood there, taking in that moment, with the image burned into my brain. April looked at me as I looked at the kids, and I could see a little smile on her face, a smile that I now get. She totally dissed me and disrespected our family idol. It was all fake, a big fat lie, and she's the one who lied. I could finally see through her bullshit. I gave her a dirty look, no smile, and when I walked away, she looked down. I went to the kitchen, checked the fridge, grabbed some leftover fried chicken and mashed potatoes, and stuck them in the microwave. I wasn't even hungry, just needed something to occupy my mind. I was gonna talk to the boys before they went to sleep, but Clyde convinced me otherwise. I had to put that aside for now, but when I confront them, it'll be the first step in the battle that started back in April. I probably would have lost, but I would have gone down fighting. I sat down with my food and started eating slowly, even though nothing tasted good. I needed to keep up my strength. I needed to gather my thoughts. I had eaten about half of it when April came and sat across from me. I glanced at her, then went back to my food and kept eating methodically, chewing slowly. I didn't say anything. I had nothing to say to her at that moment. Hey, have you calmed down since last night? Can we have a mature conversation now? I was shocked when she mentioned being civilized adults. How about a cheating and her cuckold husband? It was more realistic. Instead of saying anything, I kept quiet. Are you going to ignore me now? Acting childish and not talking to me? I expected more from you, Chris. We need to think about the kids now, so you better remember your role as their dad in this house. Am I really their father? This makes me wonder, maybe I should confirm this. Hey, chill out, April. No need to get all worked up. Remember the kids? The ones you said I forgot about when I got mad last night. Well, now you gotta think about them. You messed up big time by fooling around with some other guy. You wrecked our whole family. Think about it, April. And you just brushed off what I said last night. I thought you would just shake it off and go back to your usual routine. Nothing will change at home. I still love you, you're still my husband, and nothing has changed. Both you and the kids won't miss out on anything. I keep my stuff on the down low and only handle my business when the kids are at school and you're at work. You have nothing to worry about because I'm always here for you. I didn't respond, I just kept eating and chewing. I stayed cool and calm, poker-faced, not showing any emotion. My eyes were blank when I glanced at her, feeling nothing inside. Strangely, my words were meaningless, but my eyes spoke volumes. It began to dawn on April as she sat there, a flicker of fear darting through her. What's your next move? Are you gonna give me a hard time? I was counting on you to care enough to give me some space. I mentioned last night that he didn't come. Listen, I got your back no matter what. Why can't you see that? April was getting all worked up, and I just sat there staring at her, munching on my food. Finally, I swallowed and told her, let's talk about this after the kids are in bed. I listened to you last night, even though I didn't agree. But now, I'm not having this conversation while the kids are awake. April seemed to chill out a bit and started smiling again. Thanks for that. I think you were onto something there. Hey, I heard what you said and it really hurt me. I'll take the kids upstairs soon and then we can talk. She walked by me and put her hand on my shoulder. I flinched at her touch and she quickly pulled her hand away. I couldn't hide the disgust I felt from that simple touch. I was with the kids and tried to act normal, but it was tough knowing everything was about to change. I've come to terms with the fact that April's actions messed everything up for me. Maybe I should just be a good cuckold and go along with her rules, wait until she's done with another man. It's just how it is. Didn't she say she still loved me and wanted to stay married to me? But I knew I couldn't do it, not now, not ever again. It was after 9 o'clock when April walked into the room where I was sitting. She sighed heavily, sank into a chair, and smiled. I put the kids to bed and they fell asleep. Now they're almost too big to tuck in. They say they're going to bed, but I know they turn on the light after I leave and read. They're good boys. I looked at her and nodded in agreement. They're good kids. It's a shame that it will be so hard for us. Man, I feel for them but I have no idea how to help ease their pain. What do you mean? I thought you understood that we don't need to change anything. Just give me what I want and we can go back to being the same old family. Just be patient, I told you it'll all be over soon. You won't lose anything. I love you so much and I want to stay your wife, it's just something I have to do, nothing more. I looked at this woman who's been my wife for the past 8 years. I married her because I couldn't imagine. My life was great with her. We had 2 awesome kids and a solid marriage until last night. Everything changed and she couldn't figure out why. Well, I wasn't going to get into it all tonight, but I had to be straight with her. April, I heard you out last night. You said you want to be my wife and that you love me. You also mentioned that this other guy doesn't mean anything to you. You refused to tell me who he is because you said it's none of my business. And you warned me about what would happen if I tried to divorce you. You made it crystal clear that you're gonna take everything from me without feeling bad about it. You even threatened to take my kids. April listened, but she looked pissed off. She didn't like how I repeated her words, even though they sounded different coming from me. But she could see the truth in what I was saying. Chris, you just don't get it. I told you this has nothing to do with our marriage, but you didn't listen. Why can't you trust me when I'm telling you something? So, you're basically saying you still love me and want our marriage to keep going. But last night, all I heard from you was disrespect and contempt towards me and our marriage. When I got upset, you started making threats that you had obviously thought about beforehand. You showed contempt towards me for everything I've done for us over the years. You constantly embarrass me, put me down, threaten me, and accuse me of not understanding you. And you knew exactly how I would react, so why act surprised? Why do you think you've already made up your mind about what to do with me? Why? I thought I had all the answers, but now I was getting pissed. Up until now, I was staying cool and collected, but that was starting to change. April's angry expression got me really mad. I realized something. You made a big mistake last night, April. When you threatened me and backed me into a corner, you didn't think I could fight back. Well, let me tell you something, even a rat will stand up to a cat when it's got nothing to lose. With those words, I got up and walked away towards the kitchen. Hey, I pulled up outside where April was chilling and decided to crash somewhere else tonight. I'll swing by home after work so the kids won't suspect anything just yet. Why are you staying somewhere else? Why not stay here? We can't fix this if you leave, Chris. Please don't go, I love you and I don't want to lose you. I don't know how I'll cope if you leave me. Let's try to work things out, there must be a way. I'm sorry, April, but that's all I know. Hey, I just want to say that I don't love you anymore. Your cheating last night killed all my love for you. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but one thing's for sure, there's no going back now, Chris. What about your vows to love and cherish me? Did you forget about them? I remember your vows to me on our wedding day. You promised to give up everyone else and only love me. But you went and gave another man what we had. I cared for you, loved you, and stayed loyal. I made promises when we got married and I gave you everything I had, but it wasn't enough for you. You gave what was mine to someone else, you just threw it away and ruined my love in the process. So yeah, I can move on from this. You shattered my love for you into pieces. I can leave and I will leave. I got out and went to Clyde's place. He said I could stay there as long as I needed. I needed some time to finish what we started. Soon, it'll all be over and I can start fresh. Over the next few days, I worked and spent time with my kids in the evenings, but I didn't. Don't say anything else to April. She kept trying to chat with me but I kept blowing her off. One time she even yelled at me, but I just grabbed my keys and dipped without saying anything. At work, during a break, one of the gang members came by to tell Clyde that everything was set and we should have something in a few days. All we had to do was wait and be patient. Nothing changed until the next week. Every evening I came home to a more and more anxious April, but the kids didn't seem to notice anything out of the ordinary. Charlie was like, "You workin' hard?" I was like, "What you mean?" He said he only sees his dad for a bit in the evenings. I told him we'd figure something out this weekend. Charlie seemed cool with that, crisis averted. April kept bugging me with questions, but I just ignored her and dipped as soon as she took the kids upstairs. When she came back down, I was gone. End of the week, Clyde walked into the break room and gave me a folder. I checked it out. Looking over at Clyde with a confused look on my face, but he just shook his head. I opened the folder and read the brief report. It was 2 pages with one name at the top of each page, Carl Cummings. That was his name. He was a junior lawyer at the law firm of Lincoln, Rice, and Holmes. He was 24, almost 10 years younger than me, and single. His wife divorced him over 2 years ago. He must have been doing well for himself since he lived in a condo. April had been to his place twice this week, coming during the day and staying for an hour or more each time. Alright, so now I got a name and address. I finally figured out who this guy is and learned a bit about him. But what I didn't know was what made him so special that my girl would leave me for him. But hey, it's not my problem anymore. If she had just talked to me about it earlier, maybe things would be different. Now, what's next? What do I need to do to make things happen? I turned to Clyde for some advice, and he seemed. I was the one in charge even though I had the problem. I was lucky to have friends and a brother like Clyde. It seemed like being a good guy and working hard at my job was enough for my real friends, and now I needed them more than ever. Everything is already happening, the first lesson is due tonight. I'll call you at home when everything is ready, just make sure you have your phone with you. As soon as I call, you can let her know and end this nonsense. Fine, knowing that this would be done didn't bring any satisfaction. I didn't plan on doing it this way, but April and her men had me backed into a corner. Now I'm fighting the only way I know how. I'm not some fancy lawyer or doctor with a complex plan. I'm just a mechanic, a guy who works hard with his hands to take care of his family. I take pride in my ability to provide for the ones I love, and that includes April. But my wife isn't happy with that. Oh well, my plan works for me and she'll just have to deal with it. So, I got home and sat down with the fam for dinner like everything was normal. April was chatting with the kids, and I was joining in the convo and even starting some discussions myself. I was feeling anxious, but I didn't let it show. After dinner, I hung out with the kids, played video games with them, and helped them with their homework like a typical dad. April finished washing the dishes and came in to check on me. Tonight, she seemed more at ease, like I was back to my old self. She was starting to believe that everything was okay. Everything was cool when I was gaming with my boys. Carl Cummings was just leaving work and walking to his car to drive home. He was thinking about how crazy things got when he met Wild April at his place 2 days ago. She was all about it this time, even going down there when he asked. Turns out her old man found out, which shocked Carl. But she told him not to sweat it, which was kinda weird if you ask me. Her husband knew that her sneaky behavior turned her into even more of a freak in bed for him, so he didn't mind as he walked past the alley on his way to the parking lot. Suddenly, he felt a shock and started to stumble sideways, trying to keep his balance. Someone grabbed his arms and dragged him down the alley towards the courtyard at the end. He was pushed against the building wall and held by 2 guys on each side. He tried to see their faces, but they were wearing masks. 2 dudes in black ski masks, both looking pretty intimidating. Carl started to freak out because he didn't have much cash on him and wasn't wearing any fancy bling. So, why were these guys after him? Then, a 3rd guy showed up, also in a ski mask and gloves. He grabbed Carl's chin and asked in a rough voice if he knew some lady named April Phillips. Hearing that name sent shivers down Carl's spine. Oh crap, it's about her damn husband. She never mentioned this. He was massive, I don't know anyone by that name. He was trembling but had to try to deny everything. The big guy punched him in the ribs, causing so much pain he couldn't breathe. He saw stars spinning in front of him, the pain was intense and scared him a lot. I'll ask you again, do you know a woman named April Phillips? The lie didn't work, so Carl stopped denying it. Yes, I know her. Please God, let me get out of here alive, he thought. You'll never see or talk to her again. You get me, right? The big guy was waiting for his answer. I hear what you're saying, okay. Maybe it was just a warning, okay. He could deal with that. I just want to make sure you get it, my buddies and I ain't convinced that a punk like you, messing with other people's wives, is all that clever. So, we're gonna make sure you really understand. With those words, they backed off from pushing him against the wall as he tried to steady himself. The first punch went straight to his junk and he doubled over. But they weren't finished with him yet. He was pushed to the ground and then got hit in the ribs, felt a snap, and knew his rib was broken. The next hit broke his jaw and the pain almost made him fall over. He felt a few more hits down below, but luckily passed out after that. They must have kept beating him until they eventually stopped. They woke him up and told him they wanted him to remember some words, repeating them over and over. He didn't recall anything else until he woke up. So, this dude ended up in the ER at Memorial Hospital. Luckily, his injuries weren't too bad, but they still kept him in the regular care unit. They had him on a bunch of pain meds because he was hurting bad. He even said a little prayer just thankful to still be kicking. They mentioned that she might call him, and he knew exactly what he needed to tell her. He remembered the words crystal clear, I messed up, Mrs. Phillips, and I'm really sorry. I won't be seeing or talking to you again. No contact with you or the kids. That's it. Man, I regret ever meeting you. Bye, Carl. Carl kicked back on the bed, waiting for her to call. He kept repeating those words in his head, making sure not to mess up. They warned him that if things didn't go their way, he'd be in trouble and have to pay double. He repeated the words to himself again, just to be safe. He swore to himself that he'd never try to hook up with a married woman again, no matter who she was. Just as he finished that thought, his phone buzzed right after 8 p.m. Yo, so I was chilling with the twins when I had to step away to take a call in another room. When I saw Clyde's name pop up on the caller ID, I picked up and heard a quick message saying, "It's done, lesson 1 completed, he's in the hospital." After that, the call ended and I put my phone away, heading back to the living room with a grin on my face. April noticed and smiled too, thinking it was good news. Eventually, she took the kids upstairs and gave me a questioning look. I just told her I'll be there when she comes back down, and she smiled big before leaving. I got up to tuck the kids in, then went into the living room, plopped down in his chair, and waited. Now it's starting. April came in with a coffee pot and 2 cups. I think we should chat a bit more. You seem to have accepted things as they are. I'm so relieved. I was scared I'd lose you and it would crush me. I know you don't believe me, but I love you so much. I can't lose you over something like this, it's so minor in comparison to what we have. You should know that. I watched her as she spoke. She was still gorgeous to me even after all this time. She was the woman I've been in love with for ages, the one I wanted to grow old with. But now all our plans and dreams are in ruins. Well, let the end start now. April, I have something important to tell you, and I need you to listen carefully. I know your lover's name is Carl Cummings, and he's a junior associate at Elco Rice & Holmes. I know all about him, including the fact that you've seen him twice this week. April looked surprised and was about to say something. Yo, she said something but I just told her to shut up. That's the issue, you threatened me with divorce when I got mad. You threatened to take away all my stuff. I still remember your exact words, they're stuck in my head. You said you'd take everything I had, and more. But those were the words that really stuck. They were words of disrespect that ruined our marriage. They were the words that should have pushed me into a corner where I had no choice but to let you hook up with another dude while I watched. So, I was there, and I saw it with my own eyes. I warned you that when push comes to shove, rats will fight back. And that night, I saw the fear and pain starting to show on her face. She had no clue what was coming her way, but she was quick enough to know it wasn't going to be pleasant. Her shoulders tensed up and she instinctively defended herself by lowering her head. I heard that you told Robin that I never made you feel the way you felt with him, and that you were into him. Well, I'm not sorry that this is going to end in a way you won't like. Mr. Cummings has been informed clearly about it. It's done with you, he's never gonna see you or hook up with you again, never. I told him he can't even talk to my boys, and he agreed. I saw the shock on her face as I kept going. I'm gonna divorce you, but you're not getting any money from me. I'm filing for cheating. You'll have to pay child support for my sons, they won't go without as long as you look after them. I'll make sure you have what you need, but you gotta work if you want something for yourself. That's how it's gonna be. Go ahead and sort through all the paperwork and you'll be served. April stood up, with anger written all over her face. You must be out of your mind if you think I'll agree to this. I'll take you to court just like I said I would. Just watch. April was scared, but still defiant. She was going to stick to her plan until the end. Why don't you call your lawyer Mr. Cummings right now? Let's see what he says. Oh, never mind. I think you might need to call the hospital instead. I got a call earlier saying he's in the emergency room. I think the memorial has probably been confirmed by now. Just give him a ring on his cell to check. You can borrow mine, I already have his number. Susan looked at me in shock. What have you done? What did you do to Carl? Oh my God, Chris, what did you do? Why are you asking me, April? I've been at home with you all evening and I was at work earlier, so I couldn't have done anything to anyone. Why do you think I did something? Why on earth would I do anything to your partner? You made it clear that I should stay away. Get out of here, this is none of my business. I had a look on my face that probably scared April, she's never seen me like this. I used to be calm and gentle, never harming anyone. I couldn't even bring myself to physically discipline the kids, leaving that to her. But now she saw me in a different light, my face was cold and hard, and my eyes were lifeless. April went into the next room and I could hear her on the phone. She must have been shocked because when she came back, she had tears in her eyes. She slumped into a chair and stared off into space. I sat down calmly and took a moment. So, the other day I overheard on the phone that her man was about to ditch her. Apparently, he had the choice of leaving her or getting a beat down every time he crossed paths with her. 3 big dudes gave him a ride after work and made it clear why they were after him. They warned him to stay away from April or face the consequences. When April heard this, she wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and said to me, well, looks like you won, Carl. He told me he never wants to see me again. He said he's sending all my stuff back. He never wants to talk to me again. Well, I guess you don't have to stress about it. I have a lawyer who will handle everything. It must all end soon. I put the newspaper down and got up to go. I'll talk to the kids this weekend and explain why we're getting divorced. Maybe they're old enough to get it, if not, they'll figure it out as they grow up. As I was leaving, I glanced back and saw April. Crying. If I remember correctly, April, you said that your little fling will be over soon and things can go back to normal. I laughed bitterly. You're still young and hot, April. Maybe you'll find someone who's cool with your twisted fantasies, someone who wants an open relationship, someone who will let you play around with as many guys as you want. I couldn't do that, but that's just me. Good luck. Kids don't get it, but us grown-ups have to deal with the aftermath. Man, their actions really suck. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so your significant other doesn't pull a fast one on you. And definitely tune into the next story because it's gonna be even crazier than this one. If you're underage, don't even try to listen to it.